Good afternoon. It is 2:00 in the South, and we are here with Gerald Moore of Moore Law Center, a law firm that my clinic, Triad Psych, is now partnering with in the help with their DUI cases. So we've formed we have an unofficial partnership for a long time, which we've now more formalized. And I'm going to have Attorney Moore talk a little bit more about his practice and what it is we do together. So Gerald, it's on you.
So our relationship between Triad has gone back many, many years. And it began actually when I was on the bench as a judge, and then kept on going after I was a prosecutor. I've consulted with Mr. Glick on several different cases, and he's been of great value. He's familiar with substance abuse and family-related issues, and I found his insights to be very helpful. When I was on the bench as a judge, I spent a good bit of my time dealing with folks that had substance abuse problems and mental health issues. So you can imagine the conversations that I've had with David over the years, including I've completed advanced coursework at the National Judicial College having to do with substance abuse and drugs for judges. And that's where I really began to get interested in not just the defense of criminal activity or criminal charges related to substance abuse, but more importantly, treatment. My practice is, as well as David's practice, is committed to helping people do better. Just simply resolving their charges is not what we're about. We do that. I mean, we want to get people's charges resolved. We want to get them a good result, but we also want to make sure that whatever brought them to us is addressed and resolved so that they don't come back. I can resolve a case pretty easily, but that case isn't truly resolved until the issue, the driver that brought the individual to me, is also addressed. So if you have a mental health issue or a substance abuse issue, or you're suffering from depression, or you have some other issue going on, if that underlying issue is not addressed, then you're going to be right back to where you were. It's going to manifest itself in another criminal case, or it's going to manifest itself in some type of damaging situation in your personal life. And as professionals, we want to make sure that we leave people in a better place than when we found them. And that's why I've decided to work so closely with Triad, because our philosophies are very much in alignment in that regard. Would you say that's fair, David?
Absolutely. And that's what I was going to bring up, that our motto has always been, with your DUI, we don't just get you through, we get you better.
Yes.
And, something we've talked about is that you can end up getting through your DUI case with unresolved issues. The problem with unresolved issues is it just leads to another case down the road.
Correct.
So what we do is, in our partnership, is we do a more thorough evaluation, which does cost somewhat more than DUI schools or other providers out there in the space. But what we do is, in the report, you get a very succinct roadmap with solutions that can be presented to the court, that even sometimes the court is stuck, not sure what to do. And there's a saying that if someone doesn't have a solution for you, you come up with the solution.
Right. No, that's absolutely correct. And it's definitely a more holistic, proactive approach. We in my practice, we treat an arrest as an opportunity to dig deep and to figure out what can be done to make things better. It's an opportunity. It's not just an issue to overcome, but it's also needs to be viewed as an opportunity to do better and to sort things out that may have been unresolved.
We don't do anything basic. And, of course, getting a DUI is somewhat of a crisis for somebody. Not being able to drive or have your driving restricted in Metro Atlanta means you're essentially marooned. Anyone who lives in Atlanta or has been here knows that. You live in your car. So, we like to turn lemons into lemonade. We don't just do the bare minimum. We do a comprehensive service and evaluation so you can move forward very well and come out much stronger.
David, can you, on that note, in terms of talking about that turning lemon into lemonade, can you expand a little bit on that? Can you tell me perhaps a couple of examples? Obviously, we'll protect the confidentiality. We won't use names, but can you give me a couple examples of clients that have come from my office as far as that the issues that they had didn't have anything to do with alcohol, but still needed to be addressed, and you were able to uncover those and help them get back on track?
Yeah, in one situation that really stands out, the person who received a DUI had a sensitive position where having a DUI could be quite serious for her job. And the test indicated she was not at high risk for having a substance abuse problem. But at the same time, the same test indicated she wasn't attending to her own needs in a good way. And that's what led to this whoops, that yes, well, the DUI was a one-off, but if other issues weren't addressed, it'd be another one-off. And so rather than just, giving a blank report that doesn't plant a flag, I made it clear in the report and brought her in for a second time, and we don't charge for follow-up visits, to say, look, you're not at risk of becoming an alcoholic, but you're at risk of getting into trouble if you don't address these things. And a very big issue with psychological testing or substance abuse testing is that, for one, it's getting extremely automated. You don't always have a human touch. And even before that, though, a lot of evaluators, and we're not a comprehensive evaluation practice, we're very specific with the evaluations we do, but the writer and evaluator is afraid to plant a flag and set direction. At Triad, we're not. We only want to plant a flag and set direction. And then if the client comes in early in the case, just after they retain you, we often will put a plan in motion so that by the time you step in the courtroom, you can show the judge that you're 85% there already. You've done everything. And the judges like that. They want to close out these cases and see and let you march forward into the future. So it's a lot of what we do as well. So again, where the unexpected surprises become is that someone may not be, again, they may not be at risk of being a substance abuser, but there are other issues or challenges going on in their life which are not being addressed.
Yeah, I know that on several of the evaluations over time, depression has also been something that you've picked up that, while there wasn't a substance abuse issue, there was obvious depression issues that were fueling the fire. And that seems to be another one that you are pretty good at identifying and helping people deal with.
For sure, that depression leads to lots of bad things. And what comes out, though, is usually the client's quite relieved that even though they're apprehensive about coming in, they're apprehensive about their DUI, they don't know what's going to happen. But in 90% of the cases, when we say, look, I mean, this, I can just say, look, here's your report. You're not at high risk of having a substance abuse. Good luck in court. But we'll put you in a position where we're very action and results oriented. And the relief people have is really pretty amazing. That not only have we picked up depression, we've picked up a lot of codependency, which is, it's a word that's thrown around a lot and people don't know what it means. But just to be clear to the internet world or YouTube world, that codependency doesn't mean you're dependent on other people. It means you put other people's needs in front of your own. And as a result, you end up depressed or in trouble. So the instrument we use measures for that. And that's where we've provided a lot of help and relief to people. And anytime I brought someone back in to say, look, I mean, you need to change your behavior patterns, they've always said, people have been telling me this for years. Now I have a reason to do it, an incentive to do it. And I look at your insurance carrier. I'm not trying to, we don't self-refer unless the person insists on it to keep this clean. And we don't refer to expensive or private referrals. We want to make sure you can do this based on the resources you have too.
Right. Well, and I know, personally that your practice, you have several offices, and I know you won't say it because you're modest, but you're the executive director. And I know that you're committed to helping people get what they need. And I know that you bend over backwards with insurance and if for some reason your company, your agency can't provide the service, you try to find them help where they can get service. So I know that about you, and I think that's wonderful. But I think that the important thing is that, I've noticed over the years that you've made a real point of trying to meet people where they're at and making sure that, that things are accessible. I think that, your counseling services are very helpful. And I know that you try to take as much insurance as you can. And if you can't, provide the help, like I said, you send them on to somebody that can. So I know that that's very, very important to you.
It's very important to us. Now, we don't take insurance for the DUI evaluations because it wouldn't be a comprehensive eval.
Right.
We couldn't work our magic necessarily.
Right.
That we do. But what you're speaking to is professionalism and what that means. Now, everyone uses the word professional and professionalism, but I find if you question someone about what the true definition is, you're not going to get a clear answer. People have to pause and think about it. But we don't do that. At my clinic, and what I instill in my clinicians is a professional, is a person who undergoes specific training in order to help other people get their needs met. And we hold that very closely as well, close to the chest. So our goal is, not to just, cookie cutter the approach, but make sure you have something more detailed and specific. And like I said, the other practitioners in the space don't really do that. I mean, you can get a cheaper eval. The DUI schools usually have a evaluator in there who does this as part of a program, but we're not tied to a DUI school. We never will be either.
Right.
We're standalone, we're independent. We keep our role very succinct and focused.
Well, and once again, I know that you're very modest, so I'm gonna call you out again. When you weren't providing services for law firms like mine, and when you weren't seeing private clients, what kind of background do you have? Specifically, have you worked with any governmental agencies in your career?
I've worked with far too many governmental agencies in my career.
I think
love every second of it.
Know what they're getting, what they're paying for, because I know that when I send my clients to you, yes, the fees that you charge are a little bit more expensive, but if they knew who your clients were before, I think they would understand that it's still an extremely good value. Why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about that? I want everybody that's watching this to know who you used to do work for.
I wasn't really planning on talking about that, but now I'm going to have to. Thank you so much for doing that. But I was an area clinician for the Drug Enforcement Administration for 20 years, which was a very comprehensive embedded role. I'm still the on-call clinician for the FBI. I work for the Office of National Drug Control Policy as a subject matter expert in the area of personality disorders, known as HIDA. And I do a lot of expert witness work as well. So where that's an advantage is that a lot of lawyers will seek me out for expert witness work, because if you have a judge who's known as a hanging judge, a very tough on crime judge, they're going to listen more to me than they might to someone who hasn't been so embedded in law enforcement like I have. But I also forgot to mention that I did work for the ATF as well. So, right, and that can be a huge advantage.
It's an alphabet soup, Dave.
It's definitely an alphabet soup, but I think the other thing we have to talk about for anyone who's watching this is that, don't be a cookie cutter. That realize you have to know the judge you're going in front of, that you have to know the county you're in, the judge you're going in front of, what's the current political stance towards DUI in the county or dual diagnosis of mental illness. If a DUI occurs, there's a substance abuse. So don't go in cold. And now to talk about Gerald, I mean, especially if you're in Cobb County, I mean, we have a former judge and former DA in Cobb. I don't think you could have a better person representing you in Cobb County. And, very often people will go for a cheaper option. They may want to bring in an attorney from a different county. I don't advise that, especially if your welfare is on the line, that you want a lawyer who the judge is familiar with, has credibility with, not a new face.
Yeah.
So I think, with more law center, with your practice, the way you set it up is that they're getting somebody who's a very known, credible entity, especially in Cobb.
I hope so. I think that's the gain. I think, really to kind of sum all this up, I think the real connection, that works between the way our two groups work so well together is, and you and I have spoken about this before in the past, you were speaking about professionalism. And, many people don't know this, but I've told you this before and you agreed with me is, attorneys are actually called attorneys and counselors at law. And what most people get nowadays is just the attorney. They don't get the counselor. And the attorney is the person that tells you the law and tells you what the law is and what your punishment could be and what the legal strategies are. The counselor tells you all the things that you were just talking about, who is the judge, where is the county, what's the climate. And also the counselor is the one that says, let's go talk to the prosecutor and the judge after we have gotten a thorough evaluation and we've gotten you treatment if you need it. And if you don't need treatment, that's fine too. We can show them that we've already been proactive and got you the evaluation day one. Think about it this way, as far as the value of the evaluation and why I think it's so important to do it early. Even if you have a good legal defense, even if you have a very solid legal defense, getting a prosecutor to be willing to reduce a charge is a big deal, because the prosecutor, having been one for many years myself, the prosecutor doesn't want to be the guy that reduces the charge and then the person that they reduce the charge with goes out and hits a school bus full of kids drunk. Now, if that same prosecutor has an evaluation in his file and looks at the case and says, yes, there's some legal problems with this case, this lawyer's done good lawyering, and this person doesn't have a substance abuse problem, or they do have a problem, but they're getting treatment, their willingness to reduce that charge is going to be far greater because they've done their due diligence. They have something in their file to say, I've considered it. I evaluated this person and I didn't evaluate them to be terribly dangerous. And if that person goes out and does something crazy, they still have the report in the file showing that they did their due diligence. So that evaluation is not only valuable to the individual in terms of getting well and getting better, but strategically getting a case reduced, it's also a valuable tool for me to do that. The other issue is that I like going into court knowing more about the case and knowing more about my client than the prosecutor does. When I have an evaluation that is very detailed, like the ones I get from Triad, I go in and I know significantly more about my client. I can take that and the police report and I have a pretty good picture of what's going on. And that gives me an edge. I have an upper hand because when I go to speak to the prosecutor, I'm extremely informed. I can tell them what's going on and I can tell them what the plan is. They don't make plans. Prosecutors don't make plans. They prosecute. Defense attorneys and clients make plans. And I will tell you this, you can fix a crappy plan, but you cannot fix no plan at all.
That's right. That's very true. Yeah.
And that's
saying a fool with a plan can outsmart it. I don't know the exact quote. And plan, I call it a roadmap.
Yeah, you're
right. Now let's get back to what you said, that I could cut the price of our DUI evals in half because if I chose to, but I won't, because the instrument you take is automated. All of the instruments now are automated, so I could just put you in front of a laptop or email it to you, and you can click on a bunch of buttons, and then the publisher generates this very generic report, which you can just bring that into court, but it leaves you hanging. It doesn't come up with a succinct plan as what we do. And we actually put thought into it. And like you said, we're going to get you out in front of it before the judge makes a decision.
Right. Absolutely.
It's, going in front of a judge without having taken any steps is asking for trouble.
Correct.
Structure, as we say at Triad, structure binds anxiety, and we're very structured. And getting a DUI is very anxiety provoking, to say the least.
Yep. So, but yeah, that's really, I think that's really, really about it. I mean, I think that the evaluations are an integral part of my practice. I rely, on those evaluations, quite heavily, both, to make sure that my clients leave better than they came, and also to try to get the best arrangements, the best deals I can for my clients. So I see a lot of value in those evaluations, which is why, I have this ongoing relationship with Triad.
Right. And I think the reason Moore Law Center and Triad gets along so well is that we realize this work is as much an art as it is a science, and we embrace both.
Yes.
On that note, please think about attorney or Moore Law Center. If you have been arrested for a DUI or other types of litigation, and Triad Psych is here for you in a variety of capacities if you need us also. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We always appreciate that. And with that, we will let you go. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for listening.